everybody, it's the Heartline here. I hope everybody is having a great day. So today we are going to be ranking my top 20 to 11 roller coasters. I decided to do this because my top 10 ranking video was doing quite well, so I thought to follow it up with this one. Anyways, I hope you enjoy, and let's get into the list. Kicking this off at the number 20 spot is one of my favorite B&M coasters, and this is Thunderbird at Holiday World. Similar to Cannibal at Lagoon in that I almost did not get to ride this coaster, and it only just opened before I left the park, but I was able to snag a few rides on it luckily. And this is a very, very fun roller coaster. This is currently my favorite wing coaster, and it has a very punchy launch at the beginning of the ride, and several great forceful moments, as well as a very nice and relaxing slow roll at the end of the ride that leads into the brake run with some great near miss elements. I was very surprised by just how intense this roller coaster was. It starts off with a nice graceful element inversion, but the next few elements after that pile on the positive G's, and I found myself graying out every time I rode it. I just love this coaster. It looks great, it interacts well with the terrain, and it is a great fit for this park. This next roller coaster is one that was my favorite wooden coaster for a very long time, and that is Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. This was the first Custom Coasters International ride that I ever went on, and it is a very crazy roller coaster. It is very surreal to look at it, as it is a basically just completely straight line that goes out and back right next to the parking lot. But oh boy, does this ride have airtime. This is essentially a B&M Hyper if you completely straightened it out and made it wood. You get some nice floater airtime over all of the hills and the leg out, and on the way back, you get some nice floater to ejector airtime on those bunny hops as well. This ride can be quite rough. I found that the blue train was considerably rougher than the green train, but both of them were pretty fun. I did not get any rides in the back row, so I did not know how it was back there. But in the front, it was a bit bumpy, but bearable, and had some great airtime, and has definitely cemented itself as one of my favorite wooden roller coasters. And at the number 18 spot is a roller coaster from my home park, Kings Island, and that ride is Diamondback. This ride has a special place in my heart because it is the first hypercoaster I ever rode and helped me get over my fear of roller coasters. Also, this ride has some of the greatest airtime I've ever experienced before. I feel like every time I ride this coaster, I just get more and more airtime. And I have had the privilege of having a few rides on this where my lap bar was barely closed, and you just get absolutely ejected out on every hill, and no matter where you sit in the train, you will go flying. I used to always ride this coaster in the back for the first drop, but lately I've found I've actually gotten stronger ejector airtime when riding closer to the front of the train. But I still like to vary it up a bit just because I ride it so often. This is one of my favorite B&M hypercoasters, only edged out by one which we'll be getting to quite soon. And this is definitely an elite coaster and one of B&M's finest creations. Next up at the number 17 spot is a ride you might not expect to be here, and that is Pipeline at SeaWorld Orlando. This is the first stand-up coaster I've ever been on, and I have always enjoyed the stand-up coaster model more than most people. But I can definitely say that B&M's newer take on the stand-up coaster is far superior to the original model. While this is not a super large ride, I just found it to be an absolute blast. This ride is not packed with a ton of crazy elements, but because of how the seats lift up and down, you just get so much more airtime than you normally would, and having an airtime focused stand-up coaster is definitely a lot of fun. It also has a nice launch and some scenery, and it's just a very beautiful ride to look at. Well, despite it not being a super long ride, I just found myself really enjoying this coaster, which is how it ended up so high on this list. And for the number 16 spot, we are staying in the same park, and this time it is for Mako. This is currently my favorite B&M hypercoaster, and it has some amazing elements. This ride is butter smooth and has a beautiful setting right next to the lake, as well as some very nice looking colors. This ride also has some very, very powerful airtime. I would say even stronger than Diamondback. All of the hills on this ride deliver with a ton of ejector airtime that sends you out of your seat for several seconds. I only got to ride this coaster a few times because I only spent a half day at SeaWorld, but I definitely remember it. It had some incredible airtime and is one of B&M's best rides, just like Diamondback is. And I found myself enjoying it just a tiny bit more. For the number 15 coaster, we are heading up to Kentucky Kingdom for Wind Chaser, the park's RMC. Now, this is a very aggressive coaster, just like Lightning Run in the same park. This ride has some very strong airtime, just like Mako and Diamondback, and on every hill, you get launched out of your seat, except this one stays much lower to the ground and has some pretty varied elements. This ride has a great barrel roll down drop that it begins the ride with and leads straight into one of the most strongest and most sustained airtime moments that I have ever experienced on a roller coaster, being this great Camelback Hill. It has a few more inversions throughout the ride and also ends with another great element, this trick track double up that sends you flying into the air as well as side to side. And overall, this is just a very fun coaster. Like Mako, I did not get as many rides in this as I wished I could have, but I still think that it deserves this spot on the list. At the number 14 spot is another roller coaster from my home park, and this one is Orion, the B&M Giga Coaster. I've talked about this ride a few times in separate reviews, but I just absolutely love this ride, and it is one of my personal favorites. While this is not the longest coaster, it has some great forces that I feel like are not talked about quite enough. This ride might have the best first drop in the world, and you are out of your seat all the way down this thing. It also has some pretty underrated positive Gs, especially on the helix near the end of the ride. Aside from being a butter smooth coaster and having some great airtime and positive Gs, it is also upheld by some very nice theming that overall I say Kings Island does a great job with theming for its rides, and Orion is no different. There are a few more Gigas on this list that Orion was not quite able to edge out, but it still got a pretty nice spot. Next at the number 13 spot is another B&M Giga Coaster, and this one is Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. Like Orion, I think that this ride is a little bit underrated by the roller coaster community. It is also not the longest ride, but I think it offers something that none of the other Gigas really can, and that is some absolutely enormous high off the ground elements. Many of the Gigas kind of focus a bit lower to the ground, but Leviathan rises up high into the air several times throughout the ride, and I feel like it makes this ride very unique and also a great spectacle to behold, as it is right in front of the entrance, and you pass over the entrance pathway a few times on this coaster. It also, like most of the other Gigas, has some great airtime and positive Gs, and obviously an amazing first drop. All of these factors combine to make Leviathan an absolutely elite coaster and very much worthy of this top 20 ranking. At the number 12 spot is yet another Giga coaster, and this one is Millennium Force at Cedar Point. I don't know what it is exactly about this ride, but despite it not being perfect in terms of the layout and the forces, I just find myself enjoying it a little bit more than the other Gigas. There is just something about this ride and its power and its presence and mystery that captivates me and makes me enjoy this ride so much. It is crazy to think that this is not even in my top 4 at Cedar Point. that just shows how absolutely stacked Cedar Point's roller coaster lineup is. I think that this layout does exactly what it needs to. It has some low to the ground, has some high off the ground, has a nice mix of airtime and positive G's, and overall, I think this is a great roller coaster and does not deserve all the hate that it gets. Now, finally, at the number 11 spot, we have Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. Now, if you've seen my top 10 ranking already, you probably knew this was coming, but this ride is an absolute beast. This has some very strong airtime, like most RMCs do. And while you might look at this layout and think that's a little strange that it just has 3 camelbacks in a row, I honestly don't care because it delivers some very powerful ejector airtime. I had the privilege of getting to marathon this coaster. I rode it around 15 times in a row and left with some very sore thighs from all the airtime, which, in my opinion, is a pretty good trade off. It also has a fun barrel roll down drop, but the highlight of the ride for me is absolutely those triple camelbacks. So, anyways, that is the first part of my top 20 roller coasters. The top 10 is already out, so if you enjoyed this, you might enjoy watching that as well. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you later. Thanks. Peace.